And look you in the eye like that. Is this about talk to you and not to me? Okay. Could I hop in real quick and tell folks what we're talking about? And then you can dive back in whenever. Hey guys, it's Dan and Sharon from How We Roll. We are sitting out on the deck today enjoying the chimenea. I'm with Nanook of the North over here who got cold. We wanted to talk to you guys today about something that's really important to Dan. And it's a little bit like what you need to know about talking to someone in a wheelchair. It's really hard to come up to someone with a disability, especially if they're, in a chair or in some kind of a different setting like that. It's hard to know what to say. Back in the day, I didn't know what to say. Luckily, I have plenty of practice now. So Dan and I have been talking for a couple days. Yeah. Okay, now which thing is this about? Is this about talking to you? Yeah. So the first thing, we'll dive right in since Dan's, 2 paragraphs ahead of me here. One of the things that drives us both crazy, actually, is people will come up to us and they'll talk to me as if Dan can't understand, or talk a little for himself. Dan doesn't miss a trick. He understands everything. So if we're in a restaurant and somebody comes up and they say, what does he want? That drives us crazy. That is the surest way to not be tipped, first of all, because that's so insensitive. And it is a learning curve on the whole thing. People don't understand, but it is very upsetting when it happens to you. We've gone to doctor's offices, right? Where the doctor's talking to me, and I'm like, dude, he's right here, And that is fairly. That might be the number one thing here, is to talk to Dan, to make eye contact with Dan. That's number one for me. Actually, we didn't rank these before, but I think we should, right? Could I give another one? Can I start another one? And people do this all the time, and it's maybe because of our age. I mean, we're older. No offense, Dan. Dan's a little gray, right? People yell at him all the time. And we have this problem with aides and nurses as well. They'll come in and they'll yell at him. And Dan's hearing is better than mine. Were you saying you hear better than me? Yeah, I thought you were. He actually does, though. It's the truth. I'm the one turning up the volume on the TV and doing all those getting older kinds of things. Dan is not. His hearing is excellent, and when people shout at you anyway, it's rude, bottom line. But the assumption is made, he's a certain age, he's in a wheelchair, he can't hear you. And, not making assumptions, I think, is the takeaway from this particular piece. Don't assume that people are deaf or whatever. If you start talking in a normal voice, likely either Dan or I, if you were deaf, are going to say, oh, I'm sorry, Dan's deaf. So, and you take it from there. It's always better to start with a relaxed tone and, So, how about, Dan, how about asking questions? Can I chime in a little bit here? So what Dan is saying is it's absolutely okay to ask him questions. He doesn't mind, he prefers it. I read some of these things I got out of blogs that I looked up online and we went over. And there's a teenager called I think he calls himself the wheelchair teenager or whatever. He has a very helpful blog. He's like 14 years old. Very smart kid, very articulate, and I read his blog pretty regular. I'll put a link to it in the description. He also, as a younger person who might, be young people are very honest, I have found, for the most part. And, he repeatedly said he doesn't like it when people look at him like he's nailing them for Mars, but they don't have the nerve to ask him what happened, or why are you in the chair, or, whatever. You can ask these questions, conversational tone, smile a little, look at Dan, make eye contact with him. Cute as a button, right? Make eye contact with him, just using all the tips we've already said. Some other conversation starters as well. Dan and I haven't talked. Oh, nope, he's got one. Never mind. Could I hop in? So one of the things that Dan and I do to make it easier to talk to either of us, because sometimes people, have a hard time maybe talking to me as well. We both have large t-shirt collections with all kinds of sayings, graphics, and stuff on it. You can always walk up to someone in a wheelchair and say, hey, cool shirt. Dan also has a pretty encyclopedic collection of baseball hats and some other more stylish kind of rock and roll hats that he wears. And a lot of times he's got a concert hat that he wears. He looks very rock and roll in it. And he gets a lot of compliments at the concert, in the venue. People say, that is a great hat. That's a great conversation starter. Notice something about the person or whatever. Like I said, this has been deliberate for us since McGee, since Dan's early rehab days, right after the accident, because it became plain that it was really hard to talk to him. And we gave people something, and that has worked a million times. That always works. People will say, that is a cool shirt, or they'll say, I don't know about the shirt. Yeah, I do it too. I'd show mine today, but it's kind of political. I apologize. We're like a week from the election, so we're wearing up some of our political shirts. What shirt are you wearing? What do you mean you don't? Oh, Dan's wearing Star Wars: Return of the Jedi. He has a whole bunch of Star Wars T-shirts that he wears for the May the 4th be with you. I used to teach mathematics, so I have a whole bunch of Pi Day shirts. I can go a whole week in Pi Day with outrageous graphics and numbers and, obvious nerd / teacher bait, but still, something to look at and something to make a comment on. The last thing, could I say the last one? It's just relax. Relax. We both have a consciousness that it's hard for people, and it's okay, because you're not used to it. It's different, and it's new. Okay. Yeah. And Dan is also saying, if you knew us before, just talk to us like you did then. It's not different. It's not different. And again, you see that Dan has some trouble with speech. This is due to the global nerve problems and muscle weakness. He's working on that very hard. Year-round speech therapy, swallow practice, all kinds of stuff. That is frequently unpleasant, but he does it anyway. He's working very hard. But that has not affected his brain. He gets every word you're saying. We once went into a room with 14 people, and he was introduced to 13 of them. We both were. And they skipped a guy. And Dan, after they were all done, Dan's looking and talking at this guy. Kind of a speech impaired, who the hell are you, going on. And people were stunned by that. I don't know why. I don't know. They didn't introduce this guy, and Dan wanted to know why he was in the room. Great question. So, point being, relax. Talk to us like before if you did know us before. Otherwise, use some of the conversation starters, or, make the eye contact, do all the things. Dan, do you have anything else? And there's the obligatory happy, happy, joy, joy. Dan is done. It's official. Okay, you're good. That's enough happiness and joy for anybody. Thank you guys very much for looking at our videos. We appreciate your support. If you have other suggestions about icebreakers or conversation starters or anything like that, please put them in the comments. We also appreciate you sticking it out for this long video, and we'll see you in the next one. Take care.